Have you ever had someone remember your coffee order from 3 months ago? That weird moment where they just hand you the oat milk latte without asking, and suddenly you feel seen. Like actually seen. Not in a creepy way, but in that rare way that makes you think, this person actually pays attention. Now contrast that with the opposite. You've told someone your name 4 times, and they still call you by your coworker's name. It's such a small thing, right? But it feels like a paper cut on your dignity. Oh Lord, it is good to be here with you today. Welcome back to the Confident Connection Lab, where we unpack the psychology of human connection without pretending any of us have it all figured out. If that opening example made you think of someone who constantly forgets your name, or worse, if you're the one who keeps forgetting, hit the like button so I know we're in this mess together. It genuinely helps more people find this stuff. Here's the thing nobody wants to admit. We've all dismissed the tiny social gestures as meaningless. I used to think remembering someone's name was just basic politeness, not some strategic move. I thought saying thank you was just what you do, not an investment. And asking a follow-up question about someone's weekend? That felt like small talk, which I frankly despised. I was wrong about all of it. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was this guy I worked with at a tech startup back in 2019. He was not particularly charismatic, not the loudest person in meetings, and definitely not the most technically skilled on the team. But within 6 months, Marcus had more internal support than people who'd been there for years. People volunteered to help him on projects. When promotions came around, his name came up constantly. And I remember thinking, what the hell does this guy have that I don't? Here's what I noticed when I actually paid attention. Marcus did these microscopic things that seemed pointless in isolation. When someone mentioned they had a dentist appointment, Marcus would ask about it 2 days later. Not in a nosy way, just a casual, hey, how'd that root canal go? When the intern brought donuts, Marcus would specifically say, thanks for thinking of us, instead of just grabbing one and walking away. When you told him something personal, even in passing, he remembered it. And I mean, he actually remembered it. I was furious because I thought I was doing everything right. I was competent, I hit deadlines, I contributed in meetings, but I wasn't doing what Marcus was doing. Because frankly, it felt performative. It felt like the kind of thing people do when they're trying to manipulate you. But here's the brutal truth I had to face. Marcus wasn't manipulating anyone. He was just not dismissing the value of small, consistent, positive interactions. And I was. Psychologists have a name for what Marcus understood intuitively. They call it the Benjamin Franklin effect, but that's not quite right for what we're talking about here. What Marcus was actually leveraging is something called the consistency principle, combined with social reciprocity. Essentially, when you do small favors or show small acts of consideration repeatedly, people start to unconsciously categorize you as someone who cares. And here's the kicker. They want to reciprocate, but they also want to remain consistent with their perception of you as a good person who deserves their support. Let's pause and unpack that because it's critical. Each individual gesture, remembering a name, saying thank you with specificity, asking a follow-up question, these feel trivial in the moment. If I asked you, does saying thank you instead of just nodding change your life? You'd probably say no, and you'd be right. One thank you changes nothing, but 50 thank yous over 6 months? That's a different equation entirely. Think of it like compound interest, but for social capital. If you invest 2 seconds of genuine attention once, you get basically nothing back. But if you invest 2 seconds consistently, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times, the returns become exponential. People start thinking of you first when opportunities arise. They defend you in conversations you're not part of. They give you the benefit of the doubt when you screw up, all because you stacked these tiny bricks of positive interaction over time. Now here's where we tend to fail. We dismiss these micro wins because we live in a culture that glorifies the grand gesture. We think social success comes from being the funniest person at the party or giving the most impressive presentation. And sure, those things help. But they're volatile. They're high risk, high reward. What Marcus figured out is that the real wealth is in the boring, unsexy, repetitive stuff that nobody notices until it's already compounded into something massive. I want you to think about your own life for a second. Who are the people you genuinely like and trust? Not the people you're impressed by, but the people you actually want around. I'm willing to bet they're not the flashiest people you know. They're the ones who show up consistently, the ones who remember the small things, the ones who make you feel like you matter, not through grand declarations, but through 100 tiny moments of attention. Here's the painful part. Most of us are walking around acting like Marcus doesn't exist. We're too busy trying to optimize the big moments, the interviews, the first dates, the networking events, and we completely ignore the compounding power of just being consistently decent in the small, forgettable interactions. We think it doesn't matter if we forget someone's name because we'll just see them again. We think it's fine to not say thank you because everyone's busy. We think follow-up questions are just filler conversation, and then we wonder why we feel socially invisible. The truth is this: the people who win socially, the ones who build real influence and genuine connection, they're not doing anything magical. They're just taking the 2-second investments that the rest of us are too cynical or too distracted to make. And those investments compound, slowly, invisibly, until one day you look up and realize that person has a network, a reputation, and a level of social wealth that seems disproportionate to their charisma. But it's not disproportionate. It's just compound interest doing what compound interest does. We talk about the psychology of connection every week here at the Confident Connection Lab. If you want to master this stuff with us and stop dismissing the small wins that actually build real relationships, make sure you're subscribed. And hey, drop a comment and tell me about a time someone remembered something small about you, and it actually mattered. I read every single one because, well, I'm trying to be more like Marcus. So here's what we're going to do moving forward. In the next part, we're going to break down exactly which small social wins are worth prioritizing and how to stack them without feeling like a phony. Because that's the real objection, isn't it? It feels fake. It feels manipulative. And I'm going to show you why that feeling is lying to you and how to get past it. But for now, just sit with this. The 2-second investment you keep dismissing. It's the only investment that actually compounds in the long run. So you're convinced that small social wins matter. Great. Now you're probably thinking, okay, but how do I actually do this without turning into some weird robot who's constantly performing kindness like it's a transaction? Because that's the fear, isn't it? That if you start doing this deliberately, you'll lose whatever authenticity you have left. That you'll become one of those people who feels fake and everyone will smell it on you. I felt exactly the same way. When I first tried to implement what Marcus was doing, I went way too hard. I started remembering everything about everyone, asking follow-up questions about things people mentioned in passing 3 weeks ago, and sending thank you messages for the smallest gestures. Within 2 weeks, I was exhausted. And worse, people started looking at me weird, like I'd joined a cult or started selling essential oils. The problem wasn't the concept. The problem was I didn't have a system. I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something would stick. Listen closely to this distinction because it's critical. There's a difference between being strategic and being manipulative. Strategy means you're intentional about where you invest your limited energy. Manipulation means you're faking emotions to extract value from people. What we're building here is a system that lets you be genuinely kind and attentive without burning out or feeling like a fraud. It's about architecture, not performance. Here's what I learned the hard way. You cannot stack every possible social win with every possible person. If you try, you'll fail, and you'll quit, and you'll go back to being socially invisible. So the first step is to audit your current social portfolio. And I know that sounds corporate and gross, but bear with me. You need to identify 3 categories of people in your life. Category 1, high-value relationships. These are people who matter to you personally or professionally. Friends, family, close colleagues, mentors. Category 2, medium value relationships. Acquaintances, coworkers you see regularly but aren't close with. People in your extended network. Category 3, low value relationships. Strangers, one-time interactions, people you'll probably never see again. Now here's the key. You don't apply the same strategy to all 3 categories. That's where I screwed up initially. I was trying to be Marcus to everyone, including the barista I'd never see again and the stranger at the gym. That's not sustainable. Instead, you stack your social wins strategically based on the category. For high-value relationships, you go deep. You remember birthdays, you check in regularly, you ask meaningful follow-up questions. For medium-value relationships, you apply what I call the 3-touch rule. For low-value relationships, you just don't be an asshole. That's it, just basic decency. Let me explain the 3-touch rule because this is where the magic happens for most people. The 3-touch rule says that with medium-value relationships, you aim for 3 positive micro-interactions spread over time. Touch 1, remember their name and use it. Touch 2, reference something they told you previously. Touch 3, offer a small, unsolicited gesture of help or kindness. That's it. 3 touches, and you've moved from invisible to memorable. And the beauty is, 3 touches takes maybe 6 seconds of total effort spread over weeks or months. Here's a real example from my life. There's this woman named Sarah at my old gym. Not a friend, not someone I hang out with, just someone I see occasionally. Touch 1, I learned her name and started saying, "Hey, Sarah," instead of just nodding. Touch 2, she mentioned once she was training for a half marathon. A week later, I asked how the training was going. Touch 3, she was struggling with shin splints, so I sent her a link to a stretching video that helped me. Total time invested? Maybe 30 seconds across 3 weeks. Result? Now when I see Sarah, she lights up. She introduces me to people. She recommended me for a freelance gig once. 3 touches, 30 seconds, disproportionate returns. Now let's talk about consistency versus intensity, because this is where most people fail. We think we need to be intensely present and attentive all the time. That's not how compound interest works. Compound interest works through consistency, not intensity. It's better to do one small thing every week for a year than to do 10 big things in 1 week and then disappear for 11 months. The stack only works if you keep stacking. Here's the practical application. Pick 3 people right now. 1 high value, 2 medium value. For the high value person, commit to 1 meaningful check-in per week. A text, a call, whatever. For the 2 medium value people, apply the 3-touch rule over the next month. That's it. That's your entire system to start. 3 people, 4 total actions per week. If you do that consistently for 3 months, you'll start seeing the compound effect. People will start reaching out to you. Opportunities will start appearing. You'll feel less socially anxious because you'll have actual, tangible evidence that people like you. But here's the thing nobody tells you. You have to track this, at least at the beginning. I know that sounds psychotic, but hear me out. Your brain is not good at recognizing patterns when they're this small and this slow. You need external validation that the system is working, or you'll quit before the compound effect kicks in. So keep a simple note on your phone, 3 names, dates of interactions, brief notes. That's it. Nothing elaborate. Just enough so that 3 months from now, you can look back and see the stack you've built. And here's the part that feels uncomfortable but needs to be said. You will feel fake at first. That's normal. Any new behavior feels performative until it becomes habitual. The difference between being fake and being strategic is this. Fake means you don't actually care about the outcome for the other person. Strategic means you care, but you're being intentional about how you show it. If you genuinely want people to feel seen and valued, that's not manipulation. That's just emotional intelligence with a system. I want you to take a second and think about this. Who are the 3 people you're going to start with? Not 20 people, not your entire contact list. 3, one person who really matters to you, and 2 people who are in your orbit but not your inner circle. Got them? Good. Now here's your homework. Before you go to bed tonight, do touch one with at least one of them. Send a text, leave a comment, say their name next time you see them. Just start the stack. The snowball effect isn't about pushing a massive boulder down a mountain. It's about rolling a tiny ball of snow down a gentle slope and letting physics do the work. But you have to start rolling it, and you have to keep rolling it consistently without expecting immediate results. The people who win at this, the ones who build real social wealth, they're not more talented or more charismatic than you. They just started earlier, and they didn't quit when it felt pointless. So don't quit. Stack your blocks, roll your snowball. The compound effect is real, but only if you're still in the game when it kicks in.